Hello everybody, this is Hammer Striker here. Today I've got a Ruger SR22 on the table. Please don't forget to check out our website. Go to our affiliates page. You'll find discount codes for things like Mantis Axe and Core belts. Link to that cool little bore light that we use for lighting up the barrels. Use those links. It will often save you money, never will cost you any additional money, and helps the channel. Thank you. As you might infer from the name, it's chambered in 22 LR. It's actually a fairly popular gun. It's got a few cool features, and it kind of fits in with quite a few other 22 caliber guns that are in this same size category, and it's kind of an enjoyable gun to shoot. So let's talk about some of the details of it. First off, it is unloaded. One interesting thing about it is the slide is all aluminum, so it's not pot metal or some of the other kind of low-end metals that you'll see used on these guns. And looking at some of the way it's machined inside, it almost looks like it was a billet, where they actually machined it out of a billet. So it's a nice robust slide. Polymer body. It does have a Picatinny rail if you want to put lasers or lights on it. A thumb safety, and the thumb safety is ambidextrous. And it's actually got interesting sights. So right now this is the basic configuration. It comes from the factory with 3-dot sights. The rear sight is adjustable, height and windage, and both front and rear sights are dovetailed, but the front sight is actually designed to be able to be reversed. So you can see it's kind of a black ramp on the front, and it's a white dot that's currently showing. Well, you can flip this sight around if you happen to like a black ramp sight instead of a dot, or if you wanted to put a different color dot on it, you can actually flip the sight around. It's kind of a cool little feature. Not used to seeing that on most guns. It's also an ambidextrous magazine release. Speaking of magazines, it comes with 2 of these 10-round magazines with a little thumb grip to make it a little easier to load them. So as you fill it up, you kind of pull it down with your thumb. And you can put these optional base plates on it. You can have a flat or a pinky extender base plate. With the flat base plate, it would be kind of a 2.5 fingers. With the pinky extender, you get a full 3-finger grip on it. It is a bit smallish in the grip, but it's a perfect size for something like a 22. It's 6.4 inches long, 4.5 inches tall, and it's relatively thin at 0.97 inches, and it's 17.5 ounces. It's a very light gun. And of course, with there being relatively little or no recoil in 22, you can get a light gun and still have it be pleasurable to shoot. And it comes with 2 of these grip things that you can change out this grip to get different size grips, and it comes with it from in the box. It's kind of a little grip module that goes on it. And I have it currently in fire. I just put it in safe and it did something. That's the decocker. So when you put it in safe, it safely decocks the gun. And if you have it in fire, you can operate it, and I'm going to load it with snap gas before I actually pull the trigger, but you can operate it in double action, or you can thumb the hammer back and be single action. And of course, when it cycles, it'll be in single action, so DASA. Or you can safely decock it by putting the safety in the safe position. At this point now, if I attempt to thumb the hammer back, it won't stay. And that can come into play when we're disassembling it, because the disassembly is a little bit different on this. But because this is a 22, I'm going to load it with snap cap. This entire magazine, doesn't matter what color they are, these are snap caps, inert dummy rounds, and they protect the firing pin during dry fire, since you don't want to dry fire a 22. So because it's cycled in safe mode, it just auto decocked. So I'm going to be starting out, I'm going to put it in fire, I'm going to be starting out in double action mode. So there's the take up. A little bit of stacking, and then as it gets near the end, it stacks quite a bit, and then it breaks real crisp, and you heard it pop off. Now I'm going to cycle it, and that snap cap will be found 2 years from now because it went way on the other side of the room, so it ejects well. Now I'm in single action mode. I'm going to let it out. The reset is a little bit on the longish side, and the trigger return spring is very light, so you're almost probably going to end up all the way out, especially on live fire, simply because of the feel of it. You don't really get that feedback from the trigger. And then quite a bit of take up to get back on the wall, and then another nice crisp break. The trigger was relatively consistent in single action mode, a little less consistent in double action mode, but I'm going to call the reset on this one to be pretty much all the way out, just because of the feel of the trigger and how far you go, and then the fact that there's take up after the reset. So this isn't one of those guns you're going to be crisply riding the reset on. This particular one has a 3.5 inch barrel. They do offer this in a 4.5-inch barrel, they offer it in a threaded barrel, and they offer it in about a dozen different colors under distributor exclusives, including pink and purple and orange and green, and one with an American flag on the slide. So that's one of the things Ruger tends to do a lot, is these dealer exclusives where you get different varieties. This one was lent to us by a local viewer. It's an older gun, it's been around a while. This exact one may not be available currently, but they do still make the two-tone in the 3.5-inch barrel. So a gun similar to this is still available. And they really haven't changed much over the years, other than some of the styling may be a little bit different. It's got serrations at the front, serrations at the back, and they're very easy to use. They're very easy to get a hold of. And the magazine does eject smoothly. The only thing I did find is that it's recessed enough that it may be hard enough to get your thumb in there without turning your grip. But again, this isn't a combat gun, so that's a little less important. And at the range, it was a pleasure to shoot. Now, one thing I did find on this gun is that it was a little temperamental with any kind of hollow points. I had some CCI hollow points that I bought during the ammo crisis, and I try to shoot them through any gun that'll eat them. Not every gun will. This is not one of them. But when I put regular round nose in, it ran fine. So you may find a little bit of ammo sensitivity, and that's not really uncommon with 22s. You find what they like, you feed them what they like. The regular round nose CCI mini mag, that's kind of the gold standard. That works in pretty much everything pretty reliably. MSRP on this is $529 to $579 depending on which variation you get, and the distributor exclusives, they kind of vary quite a bit. So as far as the mainline ones that they offer to all distributors, depending on whether you get this two-tone, the all black, or the threaded barrel or longer barrel, you're going to look at about a $50 swing. Now, disassembling this is a little bit strange, but it is toolless, so I'm not going to hold that against it, but there's this little lever right there, and right here, and you flip that down. And once you flip that down, I'm going to be able to take the slide off it. Now, one thing I did find on it is the hammer gets in the way. Most of the time I put 22s on safe when I disassemble them because I don't want to accidentally have the hammer drop. But on this one, the hammer will get in the way. It's a little easier if you have it cocked and on fire, and you pull back on the slide until it lifts up off the back and then forward. So I pull it far enough back that the slide guides fall into these notches right here, and I lift the slide up, and now it's hung up on the barrel, and I slide forward, and you see the guide rod spring is coming out through there. It is blowback. It does have a fixed barrel. Now at this point, if I were going to clean it, I probably would manually bring the hammer, I would hold the hammer and put it into safe and let the hammer come up, but not let it slam forward. Now I could clean it and have to worry if I pull the trigger, I'm not going to actually damage the hammer. And then when I'm ready to put it back together again, I'll put it back on fire, thumb the hammer back to get it out of the way. But it's easy to live with, it's easy to clean, it's easy to maintain. The hammer can interfere a little bit with getting into the barrel from this side, so you probably will come in from this end with a cleaning rod. But there's no need to disassemble it further than this to clean it. Now, putting it back together can be a little bit tricky, but I might be a little premature on that because you probably want to see the slide. You can see the slide is very well machined, and some of the machining marks in here that you may not be able to see on camera are what kind of lead me to believe that it was machined out of a billet rather than cast or poured. So I do think that this is a well manufactured slide. And right back here is the drop safety piston, if I can find the right spot. So this drop safety piston is inside of a little groove, and there's a little protrusion on the trigger bar right here that operates it. So it does have, in addition to the thumb safety, it does have a drop safety, which you might not consider as important on a gun you're not going to carry, but one thing to consider is that 22s are often training guns for newer or younger shooters who are more likely to drop a gun than an experienced shooter. So having that feature, even if it's just going to be a range day gun, is pretty good. Now, what I'm going to have to do, I'm going to show you how to do this, but it's to put it back together, but it's going to be difficult to do it for real. I'm going to put the recoil spring back in there, but one of the things you'll find is it's kind of floppy. There is a little guide that you can put in here to kind of guide through it, but it's best done with it showing. So what I'm going to do is I would put the guide rod in there, I'd put the little guide in, and get this back onto the barrel like that, and then bring it back and hook it. I'm going to just do that because I have to turn it towards me to do it. There's no other way, and I don't want to bend this spring. and then I'll pick up where I've got the slide on the barrel. Actually, I am going to actually be able to show you. It's like I've done with some other Rugers. I kind of find the magic formula to putting them back together. But you drop the recoil spring in, and there's a little recess. And it's going to be hard to show, but there's a little recess that it falls into. That'll kind of help hold it upright. But what I did is I held it up like this with a little bit of a tilt that it wanted to fall backward. Kind of captured it inside of that, and then pulled it down. You see it come through. If it comes through like that, you're good. Now, one thing I did forget to do is put it back on fire and thumb the hammer back so it's out of the way. And I want to keep my finger away from the trigger while I'm doing that. But as I bring it back and I'm pushing down on it just a hair, you felt it, you can see it just dropped into place. And then go forward. I can now decock it and put this lever back up, and I am now back in operation. So it is toolless, other than if you do choose to use the little pin that you could use as a guide. But what I found with that little trick that I just discovered as I was doing it to get it back together, it's actually pretty easy to do. So it's easy to live with, it's easy to maintain, no funky tools or anything else that you need to do to mess around with it. The only other thing I found that it would be something to consider when you're choosing this gun is, for some whatever reason with larger hands, it's a little harder to grip this and shoot this well. I think the combination of it being light, the way the trigger's set up with a little bit less feel, and just the overall ergonomics of it, my fingers come almost all the way around on this. I found this a little more difficult to shoot well. From a mechanical accuracy perspective, I do believe that it's perfectly mechanically accurate. But depending on your hands, your grip, your size, this one may be a little harder to shoot well, especially if you got larger hands. But it's actually a good gun. It was fun to shoot, and it was enjoyable to shoot. It was reliable once I fed it what it liked, which again is a characteristic of 22, so I'm not going to hold that against it. So it might be a good choice, but it's probably worth picking one up at a gun store and seeing how well it fits your hand to see if this, or a more full size, let's say something like the PPQ or any of the other larger frame 22s, might be more suitable to you. Beyond that, if you like our videos, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, click that bell to be notified if you do. Check us out on Facebook, Patreon, Instagram, Twitter, kind of everywhere. And thank you.